In the following video, questions that have been asked by viewers are answered. The answers given are not to be understood or taken to mean that we desire to tell people what they ought to believe in. These are simply our answers to the questions asked, and the response is based on our studies and what the Seventh-day Church of Revelation has found to be truth. Furthermore, the purpose or motive is not to start a new organization by changing the truths God gave to His people at the beginning, that is, after the passing of the time, or in 1844, but rather to continue in the truths held and taught by the pioneers of the Advent movement. Therefore, the responses once again given to each question is what we have found to be the positions held and believed by the early Seventh-day Adventist organization. References of the pioneers along with Ellen White are provided with our response. We thank each and every one of you for your interest, your support, and prayers. And may God continue to lead His faithful few.
Standing on the platform of truth. Pioneer Health and Missions.
Since launching the video Reestablishing Adventism, you very well know that we've been receiving a lot of encouragement. People from Europe, Kenya, Uruguay, people from France, Russia, Mexico. We've been receiving a lot of encouragement. But there's also people who are interested to know what is the position of the church. Are we changing the pattern? There's a lot of questions in regards to that. Right. So one of the questions that we received was about enlisting in the Army. So we're going to be talking about that. And we're going to show quotes both from the pioneers and Mrs. White in regards to this position. So I'd like to give you, your first, listen to your thoughts.
Well, as you mentioned, it is exciting to know that God's people who are all over the world are interested in organizing and to finish the work. Mm-hmm. And it's also something good to have individuals ask where we stand in regards to some particular areas of doctrine, because people want to make a wise decision. So I understand that. And yes, in regards to the military, well, the stance that we have is the same one that the pioneers had. And with that, I would like to share a quote from Ellen White. And that statement says the following: I was shown that God's people, who are His peculiar treasure, cannot engage in this perplexing war, for it is opposed to every principle of their faith. In the army, they cannot obey the truth, and at the same time obey the requirements of their officers. There would be a continual violation of conscience, she says. Worldly men are governed by worldly principles. They can appreciate no other. Worldly policy and public opinion comprise the principle of action that governs them and leads them to practice the form of right doing. But God's people cannot be governed by these motives. The words and commands of God written in the soul are spirit and life, and there is power in them to bring into subjection and enforce obedience. The 10 precepts of Jehovah are the foundation of all righteous and good laws. Those who love God's commandments will conform to every good law of the land. But if the requirements of the rulers are such as conflict with the laws of God, the only question to be settled is, shall we obey God or man? So obviously, according to this statement, a Christian cannot obey the laws of the land that are in conflict with the laws of Jehovah. If you try, I've never tried enlisting in the military, but I know of some who have. But the principles that men and women are governed by are not the same ones that the Christian is governed by.
Well, let me tell you something that a while back I was interested in joining the U.S. Air Force. And I called the recruiter. He didn't have a good answer, a satisfying answer. So I called basic training. This was in regards to the Sabbath day. So I called and I asked if I would be able to have Saturdays off because that's the Sabbath day. And the person in charge there, or the person that I got a hold of at basic training, he told me, no, I mean, if the commander or the captain tells you to do something on Saturday, you are expected to do that. You must follow orders. And this could be backed up because I have a relative who just finished basic training. He just graduated. And I asked him that question.
Right.
What happened on the Sabbath day? He told me I had to obey orders. There was no way around it. If I didn't obey the orders on Saturday, I will be punished. So it's principles right here. The reason why we should not enlist in the army or in military service is because of principles. It will be conflicting with the commandments of God. So that's mainly the reason why we should not be enlisting.
Right. A Christian cannot obey two masters. That's what the Christ said. So either you obey God or you obey man. And again, in the military, it's impossible for a Christian to obey God and be true to God in his conscience, while at the same time rendering obedient to his officers at the military. There's two other statements that I would like to share that touch on how the Pioneer Church reacted to some of the members who voluntarily enlisted in the military. And I would like to share these with you. Here we read, as voluntary enlistment into the service of war is contrary to the principles of faith and practice of Seventh-day Adventists as contained in the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus, they cannot retain those within their communion who so enlist. Enoch Hayes was therefore excluded from the membership of the Battle Creek Church by a unanimous vote of the church, March 4, 1865. So here we read of Brother Enoch Hayes, who voluntarily enlisted in the military. And what did the congregation do?
Disfellowshipped him.
He was disfellowshipped. Right.
He voluntarily, knowing the position of the church, knowingly, he still enlisted.
Right. So that's a breaking of the covenant with God and with the body. So here's another account. This one written in 1865. It reads, the Church of Plum River in Greenvale, Illinois, met on the 22nd day of January in business capacity and, after due deliberation, withdrew their fellowship from Harriman Bates, who has voluntarily enlisted in the U.S. service, thereby showing that he was not in harmony with the views of Seventh-day Adventists by order of the church. So here we have another brother who committed the same act, and therefore he too was disfellowshipped from the church or from the organization.
So this brings to my mind Desmond Doss. And I'm sure many are going to have that question. Desmond Doss did not bear arms.
Right.
He enlisted to become a medic to help. What's your take on that?
Well, first of all, we can't judge Desmond Doss. Only Jehovah can judge him, right? But Desmond Doss belonged to the organization during the time when the organization of Seventh-day Adventists had changed their views in regards to the military. They had changed many other views, but obviously our discussion is on this issue. So when he was a member of the church, he no longer, or the church rather, no longer stood where it once stood.
Okay, so this is where the Seventh-day Church of Revelation stands.
Yes.
There's no changing. We're bringing back the pillars, bringing back the foundations where they stood back then, and we're going to be standing on the same platform.
That's correct.
Another question that has been brought up, so has to do with prophecy. Prophecy, across the board, we could say that different groups within the one true Godhead movement have different beliefs in prophecy. In regards to 144,000, Daniel 11:45, the 10 horns. It just runs around across. So there needs to be a point where we could be united and look at the light where that we have available for God's people be guided.
Well, God has given his people a prophet. And during those times, when there was two hardly that agreed, we are told, if we submit to inspiration, I think that it would resolve the problems that we have, right? But let us look into a few statements from that same prophetic gift, and it'll shed light on where we stand. Satan will seek to divert the minds of those who should be established, strengthened, and settled in the truths of the first, second, and third angels' messages. The students in our schools should carefully study Daniel and the Revelation, so they shall not be left in darkness, and the day of Christ overtake them as a thief in the night. So here in these few sentences, notice what she says, that we should be established, strengthened, and settled in the truths of the first, second, and third angels' messages. And then she directs us to a source. And we know that source is Scripture, right? We know it's the Bible. But she directs us to a book that was published during her time. She says that our students should study this book, Daniel and the Revelation, so that they will not be left in darkness. So that's what has been given to us as a people. She continues to say, I speak of this book because it is a means of educating those who need to understand the truth of the word. This book should be highly appreciated. It covers much of the ground we have been over in our experience. If the youth will study this book and learn for themselves what is truth, they will be saved from many perils. I don't know if there's much I can add to that. If we want to become familiar with the first, second, and third angel's message, and if we don't desire to be left in darkness, then we should study Daniel and the Revelation.
I think this is God's mercy so that his people will not be left in darkness, where people just interpreting different ways of prophecies. Just like he has provided the testimonies, he's also provided, through thoughts on Daniel's and Revelations, a guide to be able to present prophecies accordingly and in a unanimous way, a body united. This is a study guide.
Right. So back to the question you asked, where does the Seventh-day Church of Revelation stand in their prophetic views? We stand alongside this book or this publication. If people want to know where we stand on the sealing, on the trumpets, on the seals, on the first, second, and third angel's message, on Daniel 11, etc., then they should study Daniel and the Revelation. That's where we stand. The light given was that thoughts on Daniel and the Revelation, the great controversy and patriots and prophets would make their way. Now notice what she says. They contain the very message the people must have. The special light God had given his people. The angels of God will prepare the way for these books in the hearts of the people. So where is the light found according to this statement?
These books that were just listed.
Exactly.
So we're not going to be handing out books that contain error.
That's right.
So if we're giving books like Thoughts on Daniel and Revelations to unbelievers, people do not know much of the prophecies, they're going to understand that this is where the church stands.
Yes.
We're handing out the great controversy, and you show Thoughts on Daniel and Revelations, they would think that this is where they stand also. So this is not just a book that was given to the church. This is a book that should be available for everyone, both within the church and without, to study. This is a book she was recommending to go hand out and give to people.
Yes.
So why are we going to walk away from these quotes, these quotes that are so clear?
Well, we have the choice, right, to disregard inspiration. We could reject it altogether. Unfortunately, some were, by their actions, hold to several statements and disregard others, right? We don't want to do that.
Mhm.
We want to listen to her entire counsel. But here's another statement, and this one reads, Daniel in the Revelation, again, great controversy, patriots and prophets, and desire of ages should now go to the world. The grand instruction contained in Daniel and Revelation has been eagerly produced by many in Australia. This book has been the means of bringing many precious souls to a knowledge of the truth. Everything that can be done should be done to circulate thoughts on Daniel and Revelation. I know no other book that can take the place of this one. It is God's helping hand. So that's a powerful statement.
Yeah.
She knows no other book
Mhm.
that can take the place of this one.
So new teachings taking the place of thoughts and revelations
You better-
should be discarded,
Yes,
should be thrown away.
that's right.
Somebody comes in and presents a new light that is not contained on the book, should be thrown away if we're going to listen to the testimony.
It's no light, it's darkness.
Darkness, confusion,
That's right.
Babylon.
Yeah. So again, that's where we desire to stand. Here's another statement. It is true that there are prophecies yet to be fulfilled. The erroneous work has been done again and again and will continue to be done by those who seek to find new light in the prophecies and who begin by turning away from the light that God has already given. This is a practice that has obviously happened, but she forewarns it will continue to happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to continue by those who seek to find new light in the prophecies. Those who are pushing the prophetic days of Daniel 12 is just an example to the future.
And thoughts and Daniel and Revelation was not merely done by one person.
That's right.
It's thoughts of the body put into this book.
Yes.
So it was a group of
Bible students.
Bible students that put together, and thank God it was put in this book so that his people could be guided.
Yes. And all that information is available. Obviously, this is not an exhaustive study on this publication, but the information is there.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. It was not one brain or one mind that put this classical book together. It
Yes.
has light for us.
Yes, because some people just tackle or aim at Uriah Smith, but this was not a book just merely of Uriah Smith.
Right.
There's many thoughts of many people put in this book.
That's right.
Put in this book.
That's
So
right.
I hope we get to listen to the testimony of Christ, which is the spirit of prophecy. Like I said, he does not want his people to be in darkness. That is why he gave the writings through Mrs. White for his people, not have excuse to not walk in darkness.
Right.
And through her and through the body, when they came together to study prophecy, this is for that same purpose. The purpose so that we could walk in light, preach the same faith, preach the same doctrine,
That's right.
and not bringing confusion.
That's right.
So what the scripture says, we should try the spirits. What does the spirits of these people are speaking of?
Right.
Is it according to the testimony, or is it contrary to the testimony? And we ought to try this spirit if we want to know the truth.
Well, to the law and to the testimony.
Mm-hmm.
If they speak not according to this word, there is no light in them. So,
Exactly. So I know we got many questions that we're going to be going over, and we're going to tackle these other questions on our next segment.
Standing on the platform of truth. Pioneer Health and Missions.